You know what? This show seems to be randomly changing direction for no reason, and I think I like it. In fact, Tiara Trouble seems to be continuing this new trend. You see, this show started with internal conflicts between the girls, and the external conflicts didn't exactly have the superheroic solutions we'd want. And that's not me saying that it needs to be like the original show. You can involve the girls' personal lives and interpersonal relationships more in this show if you want, but the fact of the matter is, it still needs to be a show about superheroes. And the newer episodes are doing a better job of being superhero shows. And Tiara Trouble does appear to be continuing this newer trend. We open with a Saturday morning cartoon about a tow truck in space. That's somehow more ludicrous than something else I'm going to be reviewing soon, which, admittedly, that's kind of an achievement. Then we have an ad for a beauty pageant. Oh, wait, sorry, we gotta be all PC about this. It's apparently
the Townsville Beauty Talent All-Around All-Inclusive Flair Pageant. Woo!
Which, you know, beauty pageants have talent sections as well. Fuck, I'm not even into that type of shit, and I know that. Honestly, I think it was just an excuse to explain why Mojo Jojo is wearing a suit even though he gets booed off the stage anyway. So what's the point of calling it all-inclusive if the only person who takes advantage of it being all-inclusive is destined to fail? Whatever. Bubbles is gonna enter because singing that shatters glass. Even though shattering glass normally indicates bad singing. Although that trope's kind of played out anyway. It does make plenty of sense for Bubbles to have sort of a voice-related superpower, considering communication with creatures that do not speak human language. In fact, that's something I've noticed when it comes to the girls having powers different from each other in this show. Bubbles' powers tend to be voice-oriented or based on her empathy. Buttercup tends to get all the combat-oriented powers, including being the only girl with heat vision shown thus far. Then Blossom, well, the only ones that I can really kind of identify are super intelligence, maybe, sort of, and ice breath, and honestly, that one just doesn't seem to fit in with really anything about Blossom, but she's only used it twice, so. Anyway, a bunch of villains also want the prize for the pageant. And none of them are important. I'll get to the tiara in a minute, but I just think it's really weird that all the characters introduced in this 30-second sequence here aren't important for anything more than a gag later. Okay, Fuzzy gets used to display the tiara's evil, but that's it. The only thing that this sequence does is highlight Mojo Jojo's hidden femininity again. And based on the fact that they focus on the cross-dressing thing in both of his appearances here, I'm inclined to believe that the cross-dressing thing is supposed to be central to his character in this show, even though he's the only one not wearing a dress at the actual pageant. Oh, and on top of that, you mean to tell me he had a way to escape the entire time and only used it now? I guess maybe he likes being in prison now? Bubbles wants to pageant because fun! Buttercup wants to smash all the kneecaps. This is something very unique about this episode that I wanted to point out. In most of the other episodes, the central conflict of the episode is given to us very quickly and very directly, which isn't necessarily bad depending on the type of conflict we're dealing with, of course, but it can get very tiresome when that's the way it's being delivered to us all the time. But in this particular case, we get a whiff of what the problem's going to be from what gets Buttercup involved, but we've got no reason to think this is going to go too far, since we already know that the prize is a tiara of mysterious origin, which pretty much always spells trouble. We're going to get the main conflict more concretely in the next scene, but it's still very nice to see them going with a little bit of a slower progression to sort of change things up a little bit. Princess Morgbuck shows up and Blossom and Buttercup start taking everything super serial, which is the underlying conflict that leads to the moral of, essentially, winning isn't everything. Fine, whatever, good. Can I just talk about Morbucks' delivery real quick? In this scene in particular, I found the delivery from Morbucks to be obnoxious. And I don't mean this is the villain obnoxious. I mean, this sounds like a different character obnoxious. I mean, holy fuck, did they replace the voice actor in the first freaking episode? Because that's really fucking low. In addition, her first appearances had traces of a hip-hop style laced in, but this time it's like she's drowning in thug bravado. And if you're gonna do something like that, at least don't do this.
Oh, hey, super gal pals.
Nobody actually talks in chopped and screwed style. You are trying way too hard. Anyway, the professor winds up asking where the tiara came from, and we find out that
yes, it's quite a handful.
Good to know. No, that didn't tone him down very much. One thing I want to bring up about him in this episode is the fact that he works more in the background, which I actually like. Having a villain that manipulates things behind the scenes more so than does stuff overtly can be a very good thing for a show like this. And I think him fits that role very well. I would love to see more stuff like this from him in the future. And I think something that really helps drive that home is the fact that he shows up at the end of the episode and yet no one acknowledges him. It's like he was there the whole time and no one seemed to notice. Creepy. During the introduction, I guess, Bubbles has fun instead of being serious and wins over the crowd. Probably should have told the other girls that they should have just let Bubbles be herself and she would have done just fine, instead of them throwing formulaic beauty pageant shit at her, even though it's entirely possible that they just have no clue what they're doing. Which still probably should have indicated that they should have stopped ramming what they wanted down Bubbles' throat. We get more filler of everyone doing their talent, blah blah blah, Bubbles gets stage fright, more Bucks wins, demonic possession time! This episode's for the most part paint by numbers from here. Blah blah, Power Girls get beat up, they ask for Bubbles, Bubbles goes,
If you need someone to sing so bad, you do it! No me gusta!
Alright, so let me explain something real quick. Part of the reason I wanted to do this entirely was because of the fact that people were judging the entire series based on a few clips. People are doing that less so now, of course, but I think it's very important to bring up where people were judging it based on clips. Specifically, I'm talking about the places where people said that they forced a whole bunch of memes into the show based on 3 clips. One of which I already pointed out isn't a goddamn meme. I decided as part of my examination, I would take a look at when people were saying that there were memes and talk about if there was actually a meme being used, and if so, is it forced? And I'll be honest, I figured maybe with this particular clip there was some missing context to the episode that made this make a little bit more sense, maybe some more context in the whole series. But no. This is just jammed right in for no goddamn reason. Anyway, Bubbles winds up saving the day anyway, because now that I think about it, Bubbles is being a giant baby here. She's refusing to save the world because of the way the other 2 girls acted. I mean, yeah, I get that she felt slighted, so she's going to be a little bit less inclined. But at the same time, she's supposed to be the nicest one, and she's refusing to help? Actually, now that I think about it, is she supposed to be the nice one? We've had a few notable instances of her refusing help because she was mad at the person who was offering it. And she's also shown other indications of being vindictive and selfish. Well, now that I think about it, Blossom should have been allowed to go with her and escape from Monster Island. She did nothing to continue the argument. Blossom really only defended herself from Buttercup anyway, so this is also an example of Blossom getting punished for doing nothing wrong. Let's just end the episode with Fuzzy Lumpkins getting PTSD and forget about it. This was definitely much weaker than the previous 2 episodes, but at the same time, compared to the other episodes where I saw Bubbles' vindictive streak coming out, as much as I complained about it in this episode, it was definitely more justified here. I don't think there was an issue with the plot progression. It was fine. I don't think there was really an issue with the story itself. It's very possible that it's simply the fact that a story like this wasn't going to appeal to me in the first place. After all, I'm not into beauty pageants, so I'm going to be less inclined to be into a plot like this. I've never really liked beauty pageant plots in other series either. But I can point to some execution errors with this. Focusing a little bit too much on background characters, some voice acting delivery that didn't work very well, and the forced goddamn meme. I'm sorry, that just really put a sour taste in my mouth. I mean, overall, I guess it wasn't that bad of an episode, but at the same time, I do not feel like it was time well spent.